what I'm talking about today is called Positive Behavior Intervention and Support, which is commonly known as PBiS in the schools. And it's a support system for managing behavior in the school system. Almost every St. Lucie County school uses PBiS as far as a model for dealing with student behavior. And so I'm going to tell you a little bit about what it is, why I think it's important, and how I think that this church, as well as maybe churches around the county and businesses, could get involved to support what the schools are trying to do. So PBiS is, in a nutshell, a way of dealing with behavior by using positive reinforcement. So that just means rather than reprimanding a kid for doing something wrong, which we do also need to do that, but using positive reinforcement every time a kid does something good, either rewarding them or praising them or putting something in place where they feel recognized for their good behavior and giving them attention that way. Which seems like kind of simple, but it's not what we have traditionally done with behavior, whether schools, home, wherever. Here we are. Okay, so this is just a quick kind of juxtaposition of the different behavior management styles that have been used. So traditionally, what we think of probably when most of us were in school growing up, relies on negative consequences, authoritarian style of discipline. We'll do it because I said so, and I'm the teacher, and I'm in charge, and that's that. You know, I don't have to explain myself to you. Reacting to specific student misbehaviors. Every time they do something wrong, they're getting in trouble. They have timeouts. As they get older, office referrals, reprimands, loss of privileges, detention, suspension, expulsions. And that's usually what we see. Positive behavior support, on the other hand, looks to adjust the system and the setting to improve student skills. So we're not just going to punitively punish kids, but we're going to train. The school community works together as a team and are trained on how to deal with behaviors in a way that reinforces those positive behaviors. Part of that is modeling appropriate behavior, which I think gets overlooked. We think, especially at a young age, oh, they just do what they're told, and that's it, and they figure it out, and they move on, because we told them to do so, and that's how they learn. But sometimes kids act out because they don't know how else to act, and we see this in children's ministry here as well. You know, it's not because they're always trying to do wrong, but maybe they haven't been taught what appropriate behavior looks like. So that's a big part of PBiS is modeling for kids and teaching them those social skills that are more positive. And then the last part, which is the main part that I want to talk to you guys about tonight, is rewarding students for following expectations. So when they do follow expectations, there's a lot of different ways that PBiS could suggest to reward or praise those behaviors. I'm going to talk about one specifically, which is PBiS Bucks, but we'll get to that in a second. So the reason I think we should use PBiS is that I think it'll create an environment where acceptable behavior is an everyday occurrence, not just some aha moment that happens once in a while with those kids that are, you know, always coined the bad kids or whatever. And as concerned adults, which I think most of us here are, probably most of us are mothers, grandmothers, we'll continually be assessing our own reactions. Ever since I started teaching and adopting this PBiS model, I realized not only in my classroom, but with my daughter and in children's ministry here, I kind of catch myself and reevaluate how I'm about to react to a child, because I want to be thinking about that positive reinforcement. It's also causing me to step out of my comfort zone and do those positive reinforcements, noticing when kids are being good. Oftentimes we notice when they're being bad and not when they're good. So it helps us to, you know, mold our own thinking. And then again, that piece about teaching and modeling, in parentheses I put CM there because children's ministry. That doesn't necessarily affect everybody that's walking around the church. Some of you come to other functions and you're not a part of children's ministry. But if kids are taught those expectations in children's ministry, it's something that we can all support. These are some of the key elements to think about when implementing PBiS, and I've highlighted 3 because, again, that's the one that I want to talk about. The first thing is to consider the child's behavior and the reason, something that could be called a root cause analysis. So what that means is if a kid hits another kid upside the top of the head, you know, because they wanted a pencil, it's not just reprimanding that kid because he hit him upside the head. It's getting to the root of the problem. Well, why did he hit him upside the head? Well, because the other kid took his pencil. Well, why did the other kid take his pencil? Well, because he's been bullying this kid ongoing for several weeks now. Now we have a whole different issue once we get to the root of it, as opposed to, oh, we have a kid with an anger management problem. Well, no, we have a bully, and we need to address that. So that's one element. The next is preventing the behavior from occurring. That's that environment with well thought out procedures. Knowing that these are the way that things should go. When you come into the classroom, or when you walk through the church doors, or when you walk into the sanctuary, these are the expectations that are expected from all kids every day, no matter whether you're here Wednesday nights, etc. That can go a long way. I'll skip down to 4. That's teaching the students those skills. So those procedures have to be taught to the kids. And then 3 is the rewarding positive behaviors, which again is where we come in. This slide, I put a big X through it because it more is geared towards the children's ministry classrooms, using preventative planning, deciding when intervention is necessary, and managing surface behaviors. Those have to do with specific training on how to deal with behaviors, how to set up procedures, how to teach and model kids appropriate behavior in a way that makes sense to them, which again isn't something we're going to do walking up and down the hall here after 11 a.m. service. But it's something we could talk about in children's ministry, so I'll save that for another meeting. So here we are to the rewards. One of the ways, and like I said, there's different ways, but one of the ways that almost every school, at least that I'm familiar with, and if any of you are in the school systems, you might be familiar with this, or if you have kids, kids are given PBiS bucks. So that could be, like at my school, they're called Gator Bucks because we're the Alapata Flats Gators. At another school, it's Lynx Loot. At another school, it's Bulldog Bucks. And they're printed out like Monopoly money, but with the school's theme. And they're given out to kids as rewards with specific praise. So this is a really important part. If this was something we would look at adopting here, you don't want to just give out bucks and say, oh, you're so cute today. Oh, I love your dress. Or, oh, you smiled at, whoever. But you want to be very specific with, thank you so much. That was really nice how you helped that little girl get into her chair. Thank you so much for sitting down and doing what you're supposed to be doing and raising your hand to ask Miss Kristen a question. And then they would be given that. At the schools, kids can cash in for any number of things. It depends on the school. So we do things like they can save up their bucks, and we'll have a big PBiS kickball game or basketball game where teachers play against students, and the kids can pay 10 Gator Bucks to attend. If they don't have the bucks, it's because they haven't earned them, and they've got to stay back in class, and so there's an incentive to earn the bucks and to show good behavior to earn those bucks. Other teachers use them just for trinkets in the classroom, to buy, little prizes and things, so they really want to earn those bucks, and they do that through positive behavior. So what I am proposing is, I'll come back to that in a second, is that if we partnered with schools in the area, churches, not just us, but churches, businesses, and the closest schools around here, Morningside, Southport, right, anything else? Again? So if we were to get bucks and partner with those schools and have them here and use them in our children's ministry classrooms, or volunteers, people that are here regularly, which I know a lot of you are, just had them, or we had a stack of them in the office that you could grab when you come in and pass them out to kids to support their positive behavior, not just in the classroom. Which is why I said I'd come back to that slide. Here, kids are on average in school for 943 hours in a year. And if you take out the hours that they're not in school and even subtract the hours that they're probably sleeping, there's almost 5,000 hours that they're awake outside of school, at home, at church, in Walmart with their mom, wherever, that if we just depend on 943 hours in school, these kids aren't getting the support that they need. A lot of us are good parents, strong parents who are involved in our kids' lives, and that's good, but every kid doesn't have that. So what about those kids that don't have that support? That tiny amount of time in school isn't enough. So that's why I think it's important to really partner with schools to have consistency. It would mean that they would have consistency. It would mean that they would build positive relationships with caring adults beyond just the classroom. some of us have positive relationships with kids here because we work in children's ministry. But how many of us walk past these kids and say, "Oh, you're so cute, I like your dress," and they have no idea who you are? But imagine, you know, they could be building relationships. Again, the positive reinforcement that would be consistent if they're not getting it at home, if they're not getting it anywhere but school, it would be an added layer of support for them. So that's basically what I'm looking at. I kind of rushed because I want to make sure I don't take up too much of your time, but I am curious of what do you guys think about this? This is not something that's in action right now. This is something that I'm thinking about proposing. I work in children's ministry here. It's something that I think would be a great idea. Is it something what do you guys think? Do you have questions? Do you have comments?
But implementing it is another thing.
Right.
You know.
How to implement it.
I mean, I have an autistic son, and that is how I raised him, with positive reinforcement. And we had a points chart, and when he got 20 points, he got to get a video game or whatever. And I was trained. I mean, he had a behavior, so I was trained.
Yeah.
But doing it with just lay people, you know, and
Can be hard.
Most people, especially older people, are with the treating the negative versus the positive.
Right, which is a big part of why I said it would take some training. It would take volunteers who are willing to do so. You know, I wouldn't suggest that every person that comes through the door on Sunday morning, you hand them a stack of bucks and say, "Hey, hand these out to any kids that are being good today." But volunteers who are regularly here, who are regularly attending, especially those of us that are working with kids, even if it was something that was just done in children's ministry with children's ministry teachers, because we're the ones that see the kids every Sunday, every Wednesday night, and other adults who would be willing, but it would take, you're right, some training.
It's going to go against the grain of what a lot of people are used to.
And this does, even in the schools, this does. You have, of course, teachers.
For sure.
Yeah, and it takes some buying in. Nothing you try to start to do is ever going to catch on like that.
But you aren't saying that every single person in the church is going to have these things. First of all,
No.
I like partnering with the schools and getting their school bucks.
Yes.
But you're just saying that there will be point people throughout. So
Right.
as in the children's ministry, we would make sure, I mean, people are going to serve and we offer different opportunities, and that would be a great way for people to step up when they don't want to go white noses, to be quite honest, or change
Right.
diapers. And so I think it's awesome, and I think that there are a lot of people, I agree, that would be like, no.
Well, I think in the
Right.
church setting it will go over well, but in like the public school, no.
Well, this is what is actually being used in the public schools right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be.
Yeah. Yeah, and it depends. It does. Everybody's different, right? It depends on the teacher. So I use it. I'm very diligent about using it. It was very big when I first started teaching, so I was trained very heavily on it.
Yeah, I'm coming from Virginia,
So-
and they use it in
They use it in Virginia as well. Okay, very cool. Yeah.
Kids love it.
Jensen Beach High School gives away iPads, so the kids are like all about it.
Yeah, so, but that's just another, maybe these kids aren't,
You know, little trinkets not going to do it for them. An iPad definitely. will.
definitely, but if those bucks could add up to buying an iPad,
Or movie
Um,
tickets, or something like,
right.
gift card.
yeah. Any other questions or thoughts?
That's great, because my son's been out of school for like 5 years, so,
Yeah,
but it was rough.
yeah. So, yeah. Well, it's something to think about. I would love to meet with children's ministry.